Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today because we're tackling a topic that is absolutely essential for anyone in a leadership or operational role. We're looking at protection from sexual exploitation and abuse, or PSEA. But listen, we aren't looking at this as some dry, check-the-box compliance exercise. No way. We are reframing PSEA as a dynamic, everyday leadership practice. If you've been working in this space, you already know that having a policy on paper is one thing, but actually bringing it to life in the field, that's entirely different. Today, we're going to bridge that gap. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the policy to practice gap, and then ground those concepts in a realistic field scenario. From there, we'll talk about listening to diverse voices, figure out how to take clear leadership action, and finally, wrap up with exactly how we measure genuine progress. All right, let's go. Section 1. The policy to practice gap. You know the core conflict we face every day, right? Just having a written policy sitting on a server somewhere doesn't automatically mean people are safe on the ground. To tackle this, we look at PSEA Action Area 2. Basically, this is defined as context-sensitive advocacy and respectful awareness raising. The goal is to mobilize decision makers and cut down on silence, shame, and misinformation. But let's take that off the page for a second. This isn't just about printing better posters. This is a practical, hands-on leadership discipline. It requires visible routines. It means tailoring your messages without ever diluting your standards. It's not theoretical. It's about what you visibly do every single day. Think about the stark contrast between our written standards and our everyday behavior. I mean, everybody loves to point to their big, bold, zero-tolerance policy. But look at the everyday behavior, because that is where the real culture lives. It's the delayed meeting that was supposed to cover safeguarding. It's that vague clause in a partner agreement. It's a careless joke made in the hallway, or a PSEA budget line that just quietly disappears without discussion. These little management choices, they send massive signals to your team and your communities, and they can dangerously undermine even the best written standards. Moving right along to Section 2, a realistic field scenario. Let's get out of the boardroom and put these concepts through a real-world stress test. Picture this. Your organization has incredibly strong written policies. If you ask the staff, they can easily parrot back the phrase zero tolerance. They know the slogan. But out in the community, there are persistent rumors that getting access to assistance actually depends on personal favors. This is the ultimate illusion of safety. The staff feel perfectly compliant, but the community doesn't understand the policy. Or worse, they are terrified to actually use the reporting mechanisms. The disconnect here is incredibly dangerous. Now, before we rush in and slap a new training module on this, we need to pause. Ask yourself, who is actually at risk here? Who really holds the authority? Who lacks access to information? And maybe most importantly, whose voice is completely missing from this conversation? As a leader, you can't just jump straight to a generic technical fix. You've got to stop and analyze those underlying power dynamics first. Which brings us to Section 3, listening to diverse voices. Look, generic plans, they always fail. We have to look at how totally different people experience the exact same PSEA systems. Take Fatima, for example. She's a community member who prefers oral messages because she faces literacy barriers, so handing her a complex written pamphlet does absolutely nothing. Then there's Samuel, a donor rep. His barrier is different. He needs hard, documented evidence before he releases any funding. And then look at David, a program manager. He's stressed out, worried that pushing aggressive PSEA messaging might scare off local partners. 3 different people, 3 totally different barriers. If your communication plan doesn't account for Fatima's needs, Samuel's requirements, and David's fears, well, it simply won't work. The big takeaway here is profound. Diverse communities just do not experience risk in the exact same way. Women, men, older folks, people with disabilities, field staff, they all face very specific barriers to speaking up. So we've got to tailor our communication to fit your language, their access needs, and their trust levels. But, and this is a massive but, we have to do this without ever diluting the standard protections we are obligated to uphold. All right, Section 4, taking clear leadership action. So, how do we handle this? We need a disciplined playbook. When you, as a leader, encounter a concern, like that rumor we talked about earlier, you don't just wait for a crisis to explode, but you also don't go full rogue investigator, right? Here is the step-by-step. Step 1, observe the signal carefully. Step 2, separate the facts from assumptions, totally without blame. Step 3, consult your dedicated PSEA focal point while fiercely protecting confidentiality. And Step 4, agree on the safe next step. It's calm, it's methodical, and it strengthens the whole system before any real harm happens. Now, as you plan out those next steps, you've got to balance your quick wins against your structural fixes. A quick win has a super low barrier to entry. For example, literally adding PSEA as a standing item to your weekly meeting agenda within the next 2 weeks. Boom. Fast and visible action. But a structural fix, that's the heavy lifting. We're talking securing long-term budget lines, getting senior leadership endorsement, or entirely rewriting partner agreements. Leaders have to be executing on both of these fronts simultaneously. Let's make this totally practical with a timeline. What safe, immediate action can you commit to in the next 72 hours? What quick win, like updating your reporting contact lists, can you knock out in the next 2 weeks? And looking ahead to next quarter, what structural fixes and budget reviews do you need to get on the calendar right now? Putting these actions on a real timeline forces accountability. And finally, Section 5, measuring genuine progress.
At the end of the day, how do we actually prove this is working? How do we know people are safer? Because real leadership isn't just about giving a great speech at a town hall. It's measured by actual, observable, documented evidence. What does that look like? It's tracking training completion rates. It's properly documented partner capacity assessments. It's testing your reporting channels to make sure they're actually functioning. It's proving the budget is being executed, not just allocated. And it's having meeting minutes that prove senior leaders are making the tough calls. That is how you show real progress.
But listen closely here. As we gather all this evidence, there is one absolute rule we have to follow. Evidence should never expose victims, survivors, complainants, or witnesses, period. You must separate the data needed for management oversight from the highly sensitive info needed to protect individuals. Sharing more details than necessary or speculating outside approved procedures, honestly, it's one of the most dangerous mistakes a leader can make. Victim-centered confidentiality is completely non-negotiable. Wow, we have covered a lot of ground today. We went from bridging the policy gap to navigating a messy field scenario, learning to listen to diverse access needs, mapping out clear action steps, all the way to defining what real evidence looks like. So I'm going to leave you with this one lingering question to chew on the minute you step back into your daily operations. How will you know whether your action actually reduced risk out there, rather than just, creating another document? Think about that. Let it guide your leadership today. Thanks so much for joining me on The Explainer, and keep asking the hard questions.